This program is supported by SMC Global Power.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles and you're watching Eagle News International. Good evening, CJ.
Good evening, Alma. Welcome to the program. On tonight's headlines.
Poland's defense minister warns that the crisis on the Belarusian border could last for months or even years, a day after Polish forces fired tear gas and deployed water cannon to deter rock-throwing migrants seeking to enter the EU.
Delhi shuts down schools until further notice due to dangerous levels of air pollution, while residents of Pakistan's Lahore plead with officials to take action over the acrid smog engulfing their city.
At least one person has died in torrential rains that trapped motorists and mudslides, forced thousands to evacuate their homes, and cut off Vancouver from the rest of Canada.
And a screening test using tiny worms to detect early signs of pancreatic cancer in urine has been developed by a Japanese biotech firm, which hopes it could help boost routine screening.
First in our news, Poland warned that the crisis on the Belarusian border could last for months or even years, a day after Polish forces used tear gas and water cannon to deter the stone-throwing migrants. Polish Defense Minister Mariusz Błaszczak said there had been further attempts at crossing the border during the night in the latest escalation of a months-long standoff on the EU's eastern border. Thousands of migrants, mainly from the Middle East, are staying on the border in what the West says is a crisis engineered by Belarus to try to divide the EU and hit back against sanctions. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko and his main ally, Russian President Vladimir Putin, have rejected the accusations and criticized the EU for not taking in the migrants. The EU's eastern member states of Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland have refused to take the migrants, leaving many stranded for weeks in the forested borderlands between the two countries. Lukashenko, who has crushed opposition to his rule over nearly 3 decades in power, discussed the crisis with German Chancellor Angela Merkel on Monday. It was his first phone call with a Western leader since he suppressed mass protests against his rule last year. French President Emmanuel Macron also spoke to his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, to try to defuse the crisis. Aid groups say at least 11 migrants have died on both sides of the border since the crisis began in the summer and have called for a humanitarian response to the crisis.
UnitAid, founder of the medicine's patent pool, announces a deal with Pfizer to make the U.S. firm's oral antiviral COVID-19 medication available more cheaply in poorer countries if the potential treatment passes trials and regulatory approval. Take a look.
Today, the medicine patent pool MPP, which was created by health agency UnitAid to increase access to medicine for low and middle-income countries, is announcing a voluntary license agreement for Pfizer COVID-19 oral antiviral treatment candidate, which is administered in combination with a low dose of ritonavir. Under the term of the head licenses agreement between Pfizer and MPP, selected generic medicine manufacturers worldwide that are granted the sub-licenses will be able to supply the drugs to 95 countries, covering up to approximately 53% of the world population. Yes, first, that's a medicine who's mostly, will be mostly available for people who are especially at risk. Then that's not a medicine that everybody will take. That's very probably, let's see the direction in the few weeks or months of the position of the different bodies. But initially, we are thinking that that medicine probably will be used only for more risk, people at risk. And objective is basically to avoid for people to go to the hospital or to have severe case, meaning that you need to take the medicine in the coming few days, the three days after you have the first symptoms.
Pfizer will forego royalties on sales in all countries covered by the agreement, while COVID-19 remains classified as a public health emergency of international concern by the World Health Organization. Last month, the WHO maintained the highest level or alert over the spread of the SARS-CoV-2 virus that causes COVID-19. Paxlovid, or PF-07321332, is an investigational antiviral therapy designed to block the activity of the SARS-CoV-2-3CL protease, an enzyme that the coronavirus needs to replicate. Taking it together with a low dose of ritonavir helps slow down the breakdown of PF-07321332. It therefore remains active in the body for a longer period at a high concentration to help combat the virus.
To the U.S., direct care workers marched in front of the Capitol in Washington to urge Congress to pass the Build Back Better bill, a social welfare spending package worth up to $1.85 trillion. Take a look.
Because care of you. So when this bill passes, let's just call it a good first step. There's much more that needs to be done. And again, this is not only historic, the first time, transformative for what it means to America's working families and America's home care workers.
My message to the Congress and Senate, the President, all the leaders is, what are you going to do when you need care? Do you have the money? Do you have the person? Do you have somebody that you're going to have to care for you? Because maybe you're not dealing with it right now, but along the line, you're going to deal with it. And at that time, we have so many people that are doing that now with COVID. They need help and they need care.
I didn't think it was important because I didn't fit in that category. But when I found myself having to leave my job and couldn't continue to provide for myself and had to take care of my mother, to have I had to choose between my living or take care of my mother. And so if you ever fall in that position, then you'll know that it's very important.
It makes me feel really angry and hopeless, and it makes me feel like America is a lie. You know, that the government is not doing what the people want them to do, because it's overwhelming. Americans want paid family medical leave. And
national data show that across care settings, 70% of aides and personal care workers earned less than $30,000 in 2018, according to the Kaiser Family Foundation. Aides and personal care workers also were more likely to live in poverty than other types of long-term care workers.
The Philippine government has rolled out its booster vaccination for the healthcare workers, or HCWs, today, with a target to cover the country's more than 1 million medical frontliners before the year ends. Health Secretary Francisco Duque III, Vaccine Czar Carlito Galvez Jr., and other health officials led the ceremonial inoculation at the National Kidney and Transplant Institute, where some 250 HCWs are expected to get their boosters within the day. The administration of third shots for the A1 priority group, or workers in frontline health services, was announced last Monday and officially started on November 17 today, with the simultaneous booster vaccination in different areas. Duque said this would be continuous and simultaneous with the ramping up of first and second dose vaccination for children and the general population. Since the Food and Drug Administration has issued an emergency use authorization, Duque said the public can rest assured that the country's booster dose policy is safe and effective.
Now, putting on protective clothing, walking through doors marked with a warning message to attend to COVID patients. After the launch of the virus vaccination campaign last spring, this is now a routine that the exhausted intensive care staff of the Bavarian Hospital in Freising would have preferred never to experience again. But the fourth wave sweeping through Germany with record numbers of infections leaves them no choice. Take a look.
Die aktuelle Lage hier ist erneut sehr, sehr angespannt. Wir haben 13 Patienten auf unserer Intensivstation. Damit sind das 3 über der eigentlichen Kapazität, die wir unter normalen Bedingungen behandeln könnten. Aufgrund der erneuten Katastrophenlage haben wir unsere Kapazitäten wieder aufgestockt, um auch die zusätzlich anfallenden Intensivpatienten zu versorgen. Das geht aber, und das muss man ganz klar sagen, auf Kosten des Personals.
On Tuesday, the weekly incidence rate of the virus hit another high one day after surpassing 300 out of every 100,000 people, the first time it had crossed the threshold, fueled in part by sluggish vaccination rates. In Bavaria and the East German states of Thuringia and Saxony, the situation is reaching a critical point amid warnings that hospitals across the country will hit capacity in the first 2 weeks of December. The incoming government is recommending that people need to be vaccinated or prove a negative COVID test to use public transport and wants to reimpose working from home rules where there is no compelling business reason. A crisis meeting between the government and the heads of Germany's 16 states is also scheduled for Thursday with the aim of better coordinating the country's coronavirus response.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Monday that people will be offered a cash incentive to get double vaccinated against COVID-19 in a bid to boost the country's low inoculation rate. Take a look.
Кожен, хто отримав 2 щеплення, зможе отримати 1 тисячу гривень. Швидко і зручно, тобто через додаток «Дія». За ці кошти можна буде придбати абонемент у спортзал або фітнес-клуб, відвідати кінотеатр, театр, музей, концертний зал чи виставочний центр, або купити квитки для мандрівок всередині країни.
The government is expected to approve 200 million euros in the coming months for the scheme, which will be launched on December 19th. The former Soviet Republic recorded 442 deaths from coronavirus in the past 24 hours on Monday, the second highest number of new deaths in the world after Russia, which reported 1,211. The country of 45 million people is currently experiencing its worst ever wave of the pandemic, driven mainly by the more infectious Delta variant and a high degree of vaccine skepticism among the population. Authorities have tried to boost the vaccination by imposing restrictions on people who are not vaccinated, such as the requirement for a vaccine certificate for some public spaces.
Announcing the availability of COVID-19 booster jabs to all those aged 40 and over who had their second dose at least 6 months ago, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson said it would be an utter tragedy if those who are already double jabbed fail to get their booster shot. Kathleen Eusebio from our EBC UK Bureau reports.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson warned Britons Monday against complacency as European nations reintroduced COVID restrictions, urging younger people to get vaccine booster shots to combat a winter wave of infections. Scientists in the UK gave the green light to an expansion of the country's inoculation program to offer a third shot to all healthy adults aged 40 to 49, 6 months after their second jab. Let's listen.
Please go and get that third jab, because it would be an utter tragedy if, after everything we've been through, people who had done the right thing by getting double vaccinated ended up becoming seriously ill or even losing their lives because they allowed their immunity to wane by not getting their booster.
The NHS is a remarkably resilient organisation. Nevertheless, everybody would accept that large parts of it, particularly at the moment the ambulance system, but there are others, A&E and others, are under very significant pressure and I'm afraid likely to remain so over the winter period, which is why all...
Johnson said storm clouds were gathering across the Channel and a new wave of COVID had spread from Eastern and Central Europe to Britain's nearest neighbours. Case rates are stable after climbing to levels of more than 50,000 a day in recent weeks. But they remain stubbornly high, prompting warnings that hospitals dealing with seasonal respiratory infections will struggle to cope with additional COVID patients. Last winter, Johnson hesitated in reapplying restrictions to combat rising cases and was eventually forced to act, affecting family gatherings during the holidays. The British leader said he did not rule anything out, but that domestic data on the pandemic's prevalence showed no indication of the current need for a repeat this year. But he said uptake of the third jab, which has already been given to some 12.6 million, mostly older people, was a key part of keeping society open. He also stated that if we want to avoid new restrictions on our daily lives, we must all get vaccinated as soon as we are eligible. The booster program was previously limited to those aged 50 and over and the clinically vulnerable. The Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunization, an advisory body, also approved the use of a second dose of the Pfizer-BioNTech jab to that 16 and 17 years old. That age group had previously been offered only one dose in Britain, pending more data on the jab's safety in under 18s. Professor Wei Shen Lim of the JCVI said in a statement, the expanded age groups covered by the new advice will help extend our protection into 2022. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, I'm Kathleen Eusebio. We live in interesting times.
And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Welcome back to the news. Russia rejects U.S. criticism after destroying one of its satellites during a missile test. U.S. officials denounced Russia for conducting a dangerous and irresponsible missile test, creating a debris cloud that threatened the International Space Station. Take a look.
При этом уже многие годы игнорируют инициативу России и Китая о подготовке договора о предотвращении гонки вооружений в космическом пространстве. Просто игнорируют. Но при этом сами Соединенные Штаты эту гонку вооружений развивают самым активным образом. В 2020 году они создали космическое командование, приняли стратегию по космосу. Одна из главных целей этой стратегии сформулирована как создание комплексного военного преимущества в космическом пространстве.
The Russian military said it was carrying out planned activities to strengthen its defense capabilities, but denied the test was dangerous. U.S. officials said they were not informed in advance of the anti-satellite missile test, only the fourth ever to hit a spacecraft from the ground, which generated over 1,500 pieces of trackable orbit debris. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said Monday the danger was far from over and the debris would continue to threaten satellites and activities on the ISS. NASA said the crew aboard the orbital outpost, currently 4 Americans, a German and 2 Russians, were woken up and forced to take shelter in their return ships. The satellite was a Soviet intelligence satellite that has been defunct for several decades.
Police said Tuesday at least one person has died in torrential rains that trapped motorists and mudslides, forced thousands to evacuate their homes, and cut off Vancouver from the rest of Canada. Search and rescue teams recovered the body of a woman from a mudslide near Lillooet, 250 kilometers north of Vancouver, according to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Staff Sergeant Janelle Shoyat added that investigators have received 2 missing persons reports, but that they believe there may have been other occupied vehicles that were lost in the slide. The rains had let up by late Tuesday afternoon, but mudslides, rocks, and debris washed out several highways leading to Vancouver, trapping hundreds of motorists who were rescued by military helicopters by nightfall on Monday. Environment Canada said up to 250 millimeters, almost 10 inches of rain, what the region normally gets in a month, fell Sunday and Monday in and around Vancouver, which was also hit last week by a rare tornado. The extreme weather comes after British Columbia suffered record-high temperatures over the summer that killed more than 500 people, as well as wildfires that destroyed a town. On Tuesday, thousands of British Columbians were unable to return to their homes due to evacuation orders still in effect, due to flooding in a dozen communities, including all of Merritt and parts of Abbotsford, and as many as 9,000 homes were without power. In Merritt, flooding compromised the wastewater treatment plant, while thousands in Abbotsford reportedly slept in their cars on an elevated road overnight as farms in the Fraser family were inundated.
A video filmed with a phone shows a waterspout off the Italian island of Sicily's coast and near the city of Licata amid storms. Take a look. Now, the ANSA said the area experienced heavy hail around the same time.
In other environment news, the Pakistani city of Lahore was declared the most polluted city in the world by an air quality monitor today, as residents choking in acrid smog pleaded with officials to take action. Take a look.
यहाँ बहुत ज़्यादा धुआं नज़र आ रहा है, पोल्यूशन है। अब पहले मैं अपने बच्चों के साथ रहता था, लेकिन अब उनको मैंने मना कर दिया है। तो हमें बच्चे जो हैं सांस की बीमारी का मुब्तला हो रहे हैं, तो हमारी हुकूमत वक्त से अपील है कि वो इसका कोई हल निकाले। यहाँ बहुत आबादी है, साथ साथ इधर मिलें लगी हुई हैं, छोटी छोटी इंडस्ट्री लगी हुई लोगों की। तो या तो इनको कहीं और शिफ्ट कर दें, उनको कोई सरमाया दें, या उनको जदीद टेक्नोलॉजी ला के दें, ताकि इस धुएँ से हम बच सकें।
Malacanang said President Rodrigo Duterte is running for senator not because he wants to steer clear of the International Criminal Court's investigation into alleged crimes against humanity linked to his anti-narcotics program. Watch this.
Wala namang kinalaman sa ICC case yung desisyon ni Pangulong Duterte na tumakbo bilang senador. Ang pagtakbo po ni Pangulong Duterte as senator ay dahil gusto po niyang magpatuloy ng kanyang serbisyo sa taong bayan. At dahil matatapos na yung term niya as president, he believes in his heart that he still can contribute to public service, no longer as president but now as senator if he wins in the national elections of 2022, at sana naman po yung ating mga kababayan ay magpatuloy ng kanilang suporta kay Pangulong Duterte. Suportahan siya na siya po ay manatili sa pagseserbisyo sa taong bayan.
Nograles issued the statement after Duterte's critics claimed that the president's senatorial bid is his supposed excuse to escape from possible cases when he steps down from office in June 2022. Duterte ditched his plan to retire from politics when his term ends after he substituted Federalismo ng Dugong dakilang samahan senatorial aspirant Mona Lisa Visorde on Monday. One of Duterte's critics, Gabriela Party List Representative Arlene Brosa, said Duterte's senatorial bid is a desperate and vain attempt to evade prosecution over his anti-drug campaign. In a speech delivered in Dapa, Siargao on November 6, Duterte reiterated that he would not allow white people at ICC to have jurisdiction over him, stressing that he would only face a Filipino judge in the country and be detained in a Philippine prison. Duterte also emphasized his drug campaign was meant to protect the country from the scourge of illegal drugs. Nograles likewise backed Duterte and emphasized that the chief executive is just delivering his promise to give Filipinos a comfortable life.
In other news, the man who died in a botched bomb attack in the northern English city of Liverpool on Sunday had planned the blast for at least 7 months, that according to police today. Iraqi-born Emad al-Swilmin, 32 years old, rented a property in the city in April and had made relevant purchases for his bomb since at least that time, according to Ross Jackson, who heads the counter-terrorism policing in northwest England. Al-Swilmin's improvised device went off in the back of a taxi outside a Liverpool hospital moments before Britain marked Remembrance Sunday. last weekend. He was killed in the fireball while the quick-thinking taxi driver escaped with minor injuries after reportedly locking Al-Swilmin inside his cab. Malcolm Hitchcock told ITV News that Al-Swilmin spent time in a mental institution after being arrested with a knife in an incident in central Liverpool. The Times newspaper, meanwhile, reported that the improvised device contained TATP, the same explosive favored by the Islamic State group that was used in the 2015 Paris attacks and the Manchester Arena bombing in 2017.
The United States on Tuesday imposed an entry ban on Nicaraguan President Daniel Ortega, his vice president wife, and his government after elections that were internationally dismissed as illegitimate. Before the November 7 vote, Nicaraguan authorities detained nearly 40 opposition figures, including 7 would-be presidential challengers, assuring victory for longtime ruler Ortega and his wife Rosario Murillo. President Joe Biden said in a proclamation that the Ortega government's undemocratic authoritarian actions have crippled the electoral process and stripped away the right of Nicaraguan citizens to choose their leaders in free and fair elections. On Monday, the United States announced separate financial sanctions against Nicaraguan officials, describing the recent election as a sham. Britain and Canada also announced new sanctions against prominent Nicaraguans. A firebrand Marxist in his youth, Ortega ruled Nicaragua from 1979 to 1990 after leading a guerrilla army that ousted US-backed dictator Anastasio Somoza. Returning to power in 2007, he has won re-election 4 times, becoming increasingly dictatorial and quashing presidential term limits.
The United States and China have agreed to ease restrictions on journalist visas shortly after a long-awaited virtual summit between its two leaders, with Beijing on Wednesday calling the move a hard-won achievement. Washington regularly denounces the deterioration in China's treatment of U.S. media members and has taken measures against Chinese media on U.S. soil that have been accused of being Beijing's propaganda organs. In 2020, Beijing expelled Americans working for several major newspapers, such as the New York Times, Washington Post, and Wall Street Journal, as tensions soared between the two countries. But in the wake of a virtual summit between U.S. President Joe Biden and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping, officials from both countries said they had agreed to allow new journalist visas to be issued. Both sides also agreed to extend the validity of journalist visas to 1 year after both countries had largely capped permits to 3 months.
Eagle News will be back with more stories. Please don't go away.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Hi, I'm Alex Calleja, isang podcaster, YouTuber, writer, director, at isang stand-up comedian for more than 12 years. Kaya naman, heto na ang funniest Nakawall Videos! Ang natatanging show na bubusugin ang buong sambayanan sa katatawanan! Ito ang bagong tambayan ng buong pamilya at barkada. Mula Lunes hanggang Biyernes nyo kami makakasama tuwing 4:30 p.m. Dito lang sa Net 25. Dito, mapapanood natin ang best comedy videos na hinanap pa namin sa kasuluk-sulukan ng internet. So ano pang hinihintay nyo? Join na sa pinakabago at pinakamasayang afternoon habit ng tawanan at kulitan, ang funniest Nakawall Videos!
Ito na ang panahon kung saan hindi ka na muling luluha, di ka na mawawalan ng dahilan para lumigaya bawat dalangin.
Hi, this is DJ The Perio. Please catch me on Letters and Music this coming November 21, 1 to 2 p.m. online and on TV, only here in Net 25. See ya!
Welcome back to the news. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison, speaking virtually to an online forum in Sydney, outlines his government's plan to ring-fence dozens of sensitive technologies from foreign interference. Morrison told the forum, organized by the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, that Australia aims to balance the economic opportunities of critical technologies with their national security risks. Take a look.
Taking a wider lens, the Australian government has developed a range of policies to ensure we maximise the opportunities new and emerging technologies offer and to minimise the risks they pose. Today, I'm pleased to release another key part of that plan, Australia's Blueprint for Critical Technologies. The blueprint sets out a vision for protecting and promoting critical technologies in our national interests. It aims to balance the economic opportunities of critical technologies with their national security tasks. And it gives us the right framework to work domestically and with like-minded countries to support further development of these technologies.
Prime Minister Scott Morrison unveiled a list of 63 critical technologies to be promoted and protected at an online forum in Sydney, a step toward limiting what government, industry, and universities can and cannot share with foreign counterparts. The list includes 5G communications, quantum technologies, which are based on the physics of subatomic particles, artificial intelligence, advanced magnets, 3D printing, drones, and vaccines. Australia has become increasingly concerned about the transfer of sensitive technology to foreign military powers, particularly to China, under the guise of academic cooperation. Canberra has also moved to limit the ability of Chinese state-linked firms to operate critical infrastructure in Australia. A decision to effectively bar Huawei from running Australia's 5G network was the catalyst for a major diplomatic rift between the two countries. For almost 2 years, high-level diplomatic contacts have been frozen, and Beijing has levied a raft of sanctions that some have called a shadow trade war. Australia is currently in the process of auctioning 5G spectrum licenses.
Fisker CEO unveiled an electric SUV, Fisker Ocean, in California for preview ahead of the Los Angeles Auto Show. With its recycled carpeting, interior, and solar roof, Fisker says the electric SUV will get between 250 and 300 miles per charge and claims to have the most sustainable car in the world. Take a look.
Our solar roof, we estimate in good weather conditions like California, can give up to 1,500 free miles a year, of course emission-free miles. In super conditions, driving slow commute, you can even get up to 2,000 miles. Well, the most sustainable car in the world means going way beyond making an electric car. So, for example, we have used multiple recycled materials in the interior. All the carpets are made out of recycled plastic bottles and fishing nets from the ocean. Now, this is a step in a direction. We ultimately want to go to a fully carbon neutral car, but I think this, we believe, could be the world's most sustainable vehicle. We are starting deliveries next year in November, and we are targeting both Europe and US at the same time. We will start with 5 countries in Europe. It's France, Germany, England, a couple of countries in Scandinavia, and Austria.
Now, Manhattan Beach Mayor Hildy Stern noted that the city already has 100 EV charging outlets across the Manhattan Beach and is working with Fisker on a program to develop electric vehicles for the police and fire departments. Before the event concluded, Henrik Fisker looked forward to the LA Auto Show and the global reveal of the Fisker Ocean, November 17, U.S. time.
Blurring the line between fantasy and reality, computer-generated influencers are hugely popular with teenagers and will yield increasing soft power as interest in the metaverse grows. Typified by new influencers like non-binary Bangkok Naughty Boo, these characters promise to stay forever young, on-trend, and scandal-free. Watch this.
Hi, I'm Bangkok. Nice to meet you all. I'm 17 forever. Non-binary with a dream of becoming a pop star.
So Bangkok Naughty Boo is a mixture of Bangkok teenagers that I have collected in my own project, I Want a Bangkok. So I've selected some, some interesting styles from Bangkok teenagers, and then I mix them together to become, Bangkok Naughty Boo. ใช่ต้องใช้เวลาด้วยเนาะใช้เวลาใช้อะไรว่าไปก็พยายาม
คือพอเป็นแบบ AI หรืออะไรเงี้ยมันมีหลายหัวคิดถูกปะแล้วเขาก็วางแผนมาแล้วว่ามันภาพลักษณ์หรืออะไรมันถูกวางแผนมาแล้วว่าโอเคเป็นอย่างนี้ทาร์เก็ตเป็นแบบนี้มันเข้าถึงวิเคราะห์มาแล้วอะไรเงี้ยแล้วว่าเนี่ยคือข้อได้เปรียบมากกว่า
I hope I can meet you all in person one day. Love you.
And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
ang isa sa mga lalawigan dito sa ating bansa at ating alamin ang kanilang malalim na kasaysayan, saganang likas na yaman at napakakulay na kultura, ang Quezon Province. Dito lang yan sa Tara! Ating pasyalan. Let's go!
This week, we are going to do something different. We are going Asian today. Fried siomai with fried rice, beef, gyudon, tonkatsu curry, rice bowl. Nako, ang budget po nito mamaya magugulat po kayo kung gaano ko po, kamura. Alam ko na kung bakit paborito ng mga anak ko to.
ng Zambales. At abangan niyo po kami bilang guest performer sa hashtag Letters and Music ngayong darating na linggo, November 21, 1 to 2 p.m. Siyempre, dito lang sa Net 25. See you all!
Welcome back. A screening test using tiny worms to detect early signs of pancreatic cancer in urine has been developed by a Japanese biotech firm, which hopes it could help boost routine screening. Take a look.
It's a game changer, so people need to change their way of thinking about cancer screening, cancer checkup. It's a very different way of cancer screening, and everyone should have early detection of cancer. Everybody should be checked regularly, and this is one of the techniques that is really easy. I mean, no blood taken from your body or invasive technique, or it's just really, we just need a drop of urine.
That is really a game
Very
changer.
interesting.
Yes.
Well, that's it for tonight's broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I am CJ Hero. See you back tomorrow.
And at the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. We'll see you back tomorrow. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.
This program is supported by SMC Global Power.
Napapansin ba ninyo lumiliwanag ang mundo pag magkasama tayo? Life is so much sweeter, everything feels better pag tayong lahat ay together. Let's have fun together, let's play together, kumain, magluto, matuto together, tawanan together, hawak kamay together, we'll be there for each other, we're stronger together. Kaya tara na Pilipino, let's get together, let's all come alive. Kaya